or even the sense of touch. If you are close to a fire and you attempt to touch it, you're going to get burned, and your body immediately reacts. So these are ways of acquiring knowledge, but it's not transcendental knowledge we're dealing with. This is simply direct perception or pratyaksha. Then Prabhupada discusses the anumana, which he calls inductive knowledge. Maybe like this, maybe like that. It's hypothesizing. Then Prabhupada said, for instance, Darwin theory said that it may be like this, maybe like that, but that is not science. That is a suggestion, and it's also not perfect. But if you receive knowledge from the authoritative sources, that is perfect. Now this is very important here, because we are living in the Western world. ISKCON is mainly a missionary movement preaching to Westerns, basically, or started like that anyway. And so if you understand the thinking of these people, because they are thinking in these terms, they are thinking in direct perception, they are thinking in terms of anumana or inductive reasoning, so you got to really know what they mean by these concepts. So anumana, which is another way of validating knowledge, is inductive reasoning, and this is what science uses to acquire knowledge about things. It's what is called, Prabhupada calls it also the ascending process, the methodology of ascending process. That's anumana, inductive reasoning, hypothesizing, theorizing, and it's interesting that Prabhupada mentions in Darwin's theories. You'll probably all know who Darwin is. And the important thing to remember is that historically, scientists or science gained more respectability over religious beliefs for a very historical reason. Not, it wasn't born at a chance. There was a historical need, especially during the Middle Ages in Europe. It so happened that Western civilization or European civilization was dominated by religious beliefs. As you all know, the Catholic Church pretty much had a grip on the thinking, on the lives, religious activities, social activities, political activities of the entire European continent. I mean, that was a domination. And they had some pretty weird religious beliefs. They were so weird that if you didn't go with them, you were pretty much executed. I mean, you all know the history. All the horror stories, burning people alive. Just yesterday, my wife was telling me about the Inquisition. There was a historical documentary on the Inquisition. There's a part in France, there's a town in France that these Christians were developing a different idea, different religious belief, a set of religious belief from the Vatican. And so they sent over the Inquisition, and slowly, over the years, they executed over 1 million people. So only on the basis of some religious belief. And so eventually, thinkers began to think, how could this belief be valid? How can this be? They start questioning these beliefs. And that's how science was born. The inductive reasoning, the anumana piece that Prabhupada was talking about. So they started questioning. And slowly, they started to see that the set of religious beliefs that Europeans were holding for hundreds of years, for centuries, they were invalid. They were pretty much completely invalid. And so, you got Charles Darwin, the Prabhupada is talking about here. You got Newton. You got a few other ones, Giordano Bruno. You got Galileo. So these people, eventually, they started a ball rolling of thinking in terms of inductive reasoning. They started to see that the world in a different light, not just blind faith, blind religious belief. So science really was born as a reaction to to Christian religious beliefs. Science wasn't born really like, there's some kind of evil-minded scientists that they decided to one day just get rid of God. It wasn't born like that. At least not the way we understand it now. And ironically, most of these people, Newton, Galileo Galilei, Giordano Bruno, and probably even Charles Darwin, who knows. These people were religious people. They were not, die-hard atheists. They were church-going people. They went to the church and they just average European, middle-aged European person that went to the church as part of their daily lives. And so it was later on, down the, probably the 18th, 19th century. I mean the 20th century, mostly the 20th century, that scientists really turned a very virulent atheistic nature. They developed this animosity towards any understanding of God. And we had to understand that when scientists talk about non-existence of God, they pretty much mean the Christian notion of God, but the Judeo-Christian notion of God. They really do not know any other, or I would say they don't know as much as they know the Christian notion of God as they would know the Eastern notions of God, like in Vedic conception, Vedic civilization. So when we have to keep in mind, when we're preaching anyway, that when these people are so adamantly opposed to the existence of God, they really mean is the Christian notion of God. They don't mean Krishna in reality. They don't understand who Krishna is. So I was wondering the other day, if you, instead of having, what would have happened that instead of having the European continent dominated by religious beliefs and Judeo-Christian tradition, what if that would have been rather the Vedic notion of God? What would have happened? I mean, just imagine what would have happened. So anyway, continuing here with the reading, Prabhupada then says there is the third type of evidence. It's called Shabda. And it's called Shabda Praman, which is another name for Shruti. Shruti means that this knowledge has to be received simply by oral reception. And then Prabhupada makes the appeal to authority, that the Vedic scriptures are authoritative. Now this is very important. Also in Western epistemology, we do understand that authority carries some weight in acquiring knowledge. I mean, we do that every day. In other words, if you want to learn pretty much anything, even mundane, trivial things, you got to go to somebody who knows. If you want to learn how to fly a plane, you have to go through certain authorized agencies by the state, and you get trained, you get a license to fly a plane. Same thing with driving cars, same thing with doing anything pretty much. You got to get certified by somebody. So this Shabda Brahman, the Shabda Praman notion that in order to understand who God is, what the universe is all about, this notion that you've got to go to some authority is not a foreign notion. It's not an outlandishly foolish notion, because we are doing it every day. And especially in terms of transcendental knowledge, which Prabhupada calls the descending process. Srila Prabhupada states that there is no way on earth that we can understand Krishna without Krishna revealing himself. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he uses the analogy saying that if you move heaven and earth throughout the whole universe, you're not going to figure out who Krishna is. In fact, even if you have the Vedas, even if you have all the Sanskrit knowledge to understand the Vedas, you will not figure out who Krishna is. Vedesha durlavam adurlavam atma bhakti.